If you are of the self-hating and willfully keen to be miserable group of the populace who spends time on Twitter by choice, like me, and you have, even just once in a far-off exchange, liked a post from a person who knows a person who knows a person who follows a person who once met a person who sort of likes horror films, then your Twitter feed will currently look like this. Host is blowing up at the moment. And it's sort of easy to understand why. A horror film that takes place on a Zoom call, something that we've all had to become intimately familiar with over the past... Oh my god, it's been how long? This wasn't supposed to be the first video up on this channel. Look, I watched the movie, kind of assuming it wouldn't be scary. Not horror scary. Not... The Woman in Black scary, you know? It's the single scariest thing I've ever seen in my entire life, says Harry Potter going audience that don't traditionally watch horror films. I thought it's got everyone's attention, it has a mass appeal. I don't know if it's going to be scary. But that's fine, it doesn't have to be scary. I certainly expected quality, knowing the filmmakers, sure. But I didn't expect terror. And I certainly didn't expect feelings. I thought I'd successfully purged all of those. Alright, let's get this out of the way. This is a very good movie, and you should go watch it. Go sign up to Shudder, you Philistine, and while you're there, watch Horror Noir, it's also very good. Now, I'm going to spoil the shit out of this movie, so you have been warned. Watch it, then come back. Okay, very quick plot summary for those people who I know haven't seen it but are still watching this anyway, because some people, 6, 7? No, 5 friends get together on a Zoom call with a medium to try and contact the astral plane. This goes well, and the film ends with Hayley getting some closure on the terrible event that happened in her past. I'm just kidding, it all goes Something is allowed into the space they share and then picks them off one by one. Sounds very familiar, I know. The actual structure of the film is very stock teen slasher, and you'd be forgiven by some, not me, for reading the synopsis and choosing to sit this one out. But Host does right what I have said. Okay, right, this is bollocks. Everything's out of order. Okay, so the first video on this channel, the first video essay, is already recorded. I'm just editing it now. So I'm going to say something now that I've already said there, and if you watch that video after this one has come out, and you hear that I'm saying something again for the second time, know that I said it first that time, and this is the second time I'm saying it, although it's the first time you'll have access to actually hear it. I don't know, if you hear me say something twice, then F in the chat or take a shot or whatever you kids do. If you are going to put an unstoppable, unbargain-withable force as an antagonist in your horror movie, you need to establish rules. It's not fun or entertaining or engaging when your characters start getting picked off by something if they had no agency in that I said I'd get to you! You need to establish rules before engagement, or have your character make an equally important choice that, although it doesn't necessarily reflect what happens to them, insofar as the antagonist goes, but it's still a bad choice, or a choice they make that is negative and is reflective of their flaw. Usually the flaw against which they're being judged by the spooky force of nature. For example, in The Ring, don't watch the tape. Just don't. Don't watch the tape. You watch the tape, you die in 7 days. That's the rule. Don't watch the tape. And thank you to the manufacturer of the American VHS tape of The Ring I had back in 2003 that plays the Ring video before the movie itself. You absolute penis. Rachel knows the supposed risks. She's seen the results, but she watches the tape anyway. This works because although we know that tape bad, Rachel is a journalist who is following up on a personal story. And yeah, to her, tape not bad, tape just clunky storage medium. She breaks the rule, watches the tape, and then dooms herself. Mostly. Rule broken. If she watched the tape by accident, or she had no information about Lilo's curse before she watched it, it wouldn't be nearly as engaging as the character's not made any meaningful choice. Same goes for Sinister, one of the best written horror films of the modern day, and I'll run away from a fight with anyone who disagrees with me on that one. Ethan Hawke makes a choice that dooms him and his family. That is the second type that I mentioned before. He's not given a choice to fuck with Bagul that he then takes. He's given a choice to hand the tapes over to the cops and leave the murder house. The potential cost of this choice that he makes is his family. His family's still at risk, but this time it's because his wife will probably leave him. He chooses to try for another Kentucky Blood at the risk of losing everything. And then he loses everything. So too with Host. Hayley, who, judging by her more somber tone and a keen response when she thinks something is happening, can be taken to be looking for some kind of closure or contact, asks her friends to be respectful and take shit seriously. She asks nicely. Gemma, after things start kicking off and we lose English Casey Abrams, invents an incident. She doesn't do this knowing the risk of inviting a creature in from the astral plane, damn it. Jesus. But she does it knowing it will upset Haley. She makes a choice, and bad things happen as a result. The film walks a very fine balance between making it clear that there is no hope of survival for the characters, but giving them enough agency in their actions so that we don't feel like we're just watching a snuff film. And given the method of its filming, the film looks and sounds great. With this shot, okay, this shot right here, this shot is seriously, it's going up there next to this one. Heather's emotional, distraught plea with the darkness surrounding her was such an iconic image from Blair Witch Project. And here we have a similar type of shot, but instead, Emma's surrounded by matter. She's trapped and isolated, compressed into the frame, and she's not tearfully apologising. She's watching. She didn't invite the thing in, she's just suffering the consequences. She's a witness, and that's all the power that she has. The performances are pitch perfect. Not just the high-intensity reactions and the freakouts, but the opening sells this group of characters as a believable group of friends. Not for a saccharine faux banter, but clearly defined relationships and individual characteristics. There is a very real sense of loss that echoes trapped online become the only things left of these people after they all shuffle off into the astral fuck's sake. Ugh. I could give you the pretentious, wanky reading that says the entity is actually a metaphor for the coronavirus. And I will. As the seance begins, we see the lights in Gemma's room have gone blue, which is a clear reference to the excellent National Health Service. I'm kidding. Mostly. The horror is so effective because the writers and director were all very aware of the context in which the film exists. The attic sequence is very aware of the viral prank video that sparked this whole project, which is why we get build up to Caroline entering, the drop off as she decides that she isn't going up there, she's going to send the selfie stick up, and then the panning shot in the attic that is more effective in its building of tension because we've seen all of this.
What?
But then it doesn't alleviate that tension. It leaves it, it locks it in place to be released elsewhere. I mean, if there's one thing these folks know, it's tension building. There's also the use of zoom backgrounds and filters, all signs that the filmmakers thought about how to make the language of a Zoom call part of the text of the film. For comparison's sake, let's look at 2014's Unfriended, another horror film, found footage taking place within the confines of a computer screen, though this time not just the Zoom program window, but the whole MacBook interface. The film's alright, it has strengths and it has weaknesses, and it uses the interface in a way that works. It sells the use of the computer as the medium of the narrative. However, the film can easily be split between video segments and non-video segments, like IMs popping up and characters chatting in text form, or the protagonist looking things up online. I would argue that you could make this story in a more traditionally presented horror film style, with maybe Sherlock-style graphics for the IMs, or even just incorporate them into the cinematography and the dialogue, and the story wouldn't change. The use of the computer as a gimmick, a well-defined and thoroughly used gimmick, yes, but it still doesn't form a core part of the story. Not to mention the film also ends, spoilers, with another total wipeout, but this time, by the time we get to that point, we've discovered all the characters are fucking terrible. But Host uses the material of a Zoom call as a core part of the narrative. This same story wouldn't work in person, as the core theme of the horror comes from the invasion of a Zoom call. The visual language of a Zoom call is something that was unknown to many people, including myself, before the pandemic hit, and yet now we're all so familiar with it. Even with other platforms like Skype, or what could charitably be called Facebook's attempt at a video messaging service, the feeling's different. Am I really about to start waxing philosophical about software interface design? Maybe, those 3 shots have started to do their stuff and it's only 7 in the morning, but I do think it's worth pointing out that the language of Zoom differs from other platforms because unlike Skype or Facebook, where you join a call, with Zoom you enter a room. It's a space, a tangible, not tangible space, where someone has to let you in. There is an approximation of space, of being in a place with the people you are speaking to, and the underlying feeling that you're safer because nothing can get in without being let in. The peaking and the noise gating when people start shouting, the talking over each other, the filters, and the sudden lurching as the device you're seeing through gets hoisted through the air like an overzealous child yanking a cat around. The focus on your face, the constant awareness of you being visible and center stage. In isolation, we've all had to get used to these things, this new filter through which we communicate, and some folks like myself are socializing more online than they ever did in the past time, all those years ago in January. It's how we exist. Quite literally, unless you are with people in the flesh, when you're not on a Zoom call, you don't exist. When the group are all killed, their part in the call ends. They're gone. Here in the UK, to go outside in early August as it is now, is to go mad. People are meeting, chatting, drinking, fighting, working, playing, as though there never was a pandemic. Let alone that it's still very much a thing now, it's not gone anywhere. For the people still taking it seriously, the isolation is that much harder now that you're an outlier. actively resisting the movement of the herd to keep yourself and those you care about safe. For now, we still live on Zoom, and if the virtual walls and doors of a Zoom chat room can be so easily invaded by a monster wearing a mask, then our existence is at risk. Host isn't scary because the monster might get us in our homes. It's scary because it takes the last place we have and turns it against us.